Welcome to For the Love of Books, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries. Hi everyone, welcome back to the North Lanarkshire Libraries podcast For the Love of Books. My name is Chris Wilson, the E-Services Librarian, and this episode is the final one of the ones that we had planned for the main part of the podcast in this current season. But don't worry, we're not going away for too long, and also the Bees Books edition episodes will continue on as well, so you'll at least have one of those next week and every kind of couple of weeks from that as well, until we get the main podcast back up and running again after a short break. And for the final episode of this current season, we have got an interview with a local author, Owen Mullen. Owen Mullen is predominantly a crime writer, writes some thrillers as well, and he's been a very successful author to this point, and his debut novel, The Games That People Play, was longlisted for Bloody Scotland's very prestigious McIlvanney Crime Book of the Year when it first came out in 2017, and also his Delaney series has been picked up as well as being part of the Sunday Times Crime Club and things like that too. So he has had a lot of great success so far in his career, and he has got a new book out this month called Three Sisters, and it is a fantastic read. I've had the chance to catch that a little bit early before it's released, and it's definitely worth picking up when you get a chance. So let's find out a little bit more about Owen from himself and his writing, and also the new book Three Sisters too. So here we are. So, Owen, welcome to our podcast. Thank you for coming along to chat to me today. Some of our listeners might hopefully recognise your name as well, because you have been quite a good friend to North Lanarkshire in recent years. I might think you've got a bit of a connection to the local area as well. Is that right?
I do, Chris. Nice to see you. Good to be here. I'm a local boy. I was born in Coatbridge, went to school here. My friends were here, grew up here. When I get into a band, one of my very first gigs was in the Carnegie Library in Academy Street in Coatbridge.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So some people practice and for 50 years, 30 years to get to Carnegie Hall, and here I did it. It's one of those things. I'm a local boy. My dad was the provost of the town in 1964 to 67. So really, all my connections are here, and we lived abroad for years. We lived different places, South Lanarkshire, London, and we lived abroad there for a long time. And we were coming back. We were lucky we just found the right house here, and honestly, it's great to be back. People have said to me quite often, "Oh, you've left the sun, you've left the Mediterranean." Honestly, we had a great time there, and we're having a great time now. And I really, really appreciate it. It's nice to have our family close. The weather doesn't affect us all that much. And Coatbridge is geographically really a great place. You're into Glasgow or Edinburgh, motorways to go anywhere else. So, really enjoying being back.
Yeah, it's quite a central location for pretty much the whole Scotland, pretty much, isn't it? And like I say, I think sometimes where you experience those things, kind of living abroad for a while and things like that sort of stuff. But you kind of always, there's always that kind of home feeling of being back in Scotland, I think, and stuff like that. And
Scotland was always home. That's just how we both felt about it. I think maybe we didn't appreciate it quite as much when we stayed here at first that we still appreciate it now. And that's not to say it's perfect. Nowhere is. But I'm really enjoying being back, Chris.
Fantastic. And like I say, you've kind of done things for North Lanarkshire Libraries over the last few years. You did an event as well at Coatbridge Library at one point, and you've donated some of your books to us in the past. Is supporting libraries something you've always thought was quite an important thing to do as an author?
I think it's a natural thing to do. The truth is, I believe that if it hadn't been for the libraries, I probably would never become a writer. The library we were speaking about there just before we started the podcast, Coatbridge Library, the original one in Academy Street, the big old building, it's been there for God knows how long. I used to go there when I was a teenager, and stroll through, pick up books, read. I remember reading Wilkie Collins, and at that time, the house I was brought up in, they were interested in politics, but there weren't a whole lot of books around. So if you wanted a book in those days, you went to the library. Of course, it was great for finding out stuff. The library back then was no internet, no Google, none of that stuff. So that's where if you wanted to find out stuff. So when I later on when I became a writer, someone who actually produced books, it seemed like a no-brainer to make a contribution back. And I don't, not because I'm a good Samaritan, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. And of course, we have given some books to Goldbridge Libraries, North Lanarkshire Libraries, various other ones in Scotland, actually. And of course, it's not all philanthropic. It does give me the opportunity as a writer to reach a bigger audience. So they read this book, maybe they'll go and buy something sometime and keep the ball rolling, But yeah, it's a no-brainer. And of course, in these times, libraries are well down the list, I guess, when it comes to resources from government and things like that. They're underappreciated. So I think anything you can do to help them is actually a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's very much appreciated that you donated your books recently to us, and hopefully some of our readers have had a chance to kind of enjoy those, and that any who have will have discovered that you are predominantly pretty much a crime writer. And today, I think you've had about 12 books out to date. I think is that right?
I've got 12 books. The next one's the 13th.
Yep. And you've got one coming out that one's coming out later this month, isn't it? And that's quite prolific writing. So do you always find it quite easy to come up with the idea and get it down on the page and get the story out there?
I know. I don't think it's easy. Some ideas come more easily than others. I've got no idea where they come from. My wife Christine is very involved in the whole process of it, and she's a constant font of ideas and things like that. She's also never, I said to her, she has never met a thought she can't resolve. So when I'm saying this isn't working, she says, of course it's working. You're making it up, that kind of stuff. But no, they come from the difficulty. The difficulty in writing is that writing fiction is truth doesn't have to be believable, but fiction does. I mean, the truth is the truth. It can be as fantastical as it likes. But when you're writing something, it's got to. There is, of course, there's a natural suspension of belief because it is fiction. But I try to keep my books as real as it can be. And the reason I want to write in Scotland is because, well, of course, I know Scotland. Three of the books, the Charlie Cameron books are set in Glasgow. Another couple are set just in Scotland. The new one, Three Sisters, if I can just give it a plug, Three Sisters, which is out on the 26th of July, is set in Glasgow, and then further up north in Lochmora. We went up there for a few days to do some research on it. Fantastic stuff. So, but yeah, the idea is there are always ideas. It's then what you do with them. Can you make them work? Yeah, and we normally can. Normally, I hope we can.
And does Christine have much of an input into that?
It's Christine.
Yeah.
Oh, I was crediting libraries. I wouldn't be a writer without libraries. I wouldn't be a writer without Christine. The amount of times I've said, no, I've had enough of all that stuff. And she said, no, what's the problem? What we do is we have a process, we sit down with a cup of coffee and we chat about the book from the kernel idea. And where would that go? And what would that mean? And, Three Sisters, I'll tell you about it later, but Three Sisters, often books start out to be something else. And some people with Stephen King, and yes, I do wish I had his money, but some people with Stephen King just writes and see what happens. Now, if I did that, I would never produce anything. I'd like to know where I'm going. And sometimes I do lose heart. I do lose the faith in thinking, this isn't going to work. And Christine comes in, and apart from anything else, she's always got great ideas for what could happen. And like the plagiarist that I unashamedly am, I just say that's a great idea. That's in the book.
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you say about it, because I think from having talked to various authors, I think every author has a different kind of way of doing things, and like a different process. Like say some just kind of write and see where it goes. Some have to kind of really kind of plan it out and kind of put it really kind of in place and stuff like that. So it's good. I always find it quite interesting to see how the different authors kind of approach the writing kind of in the different ways. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. Right.
And there is no right or wrong way, it's
Well,
whatever
that's it.
works for you, whatever works for the book.
Yeah, as long as you come up with a book at the end of it, I suppose that how you get there doesn't really matter
Right.
too much.
That's right.
So you do have quite a few different series of books as well, as you kind of touched on. You've got the PI Charlie Cameron books and Mackenzie Darragh books and the Glass family ones as well. Do you think you'll go back to them and write any more about those characters going forward?
Well, the problem, we have ideas for all of those,
Yeah,
for all of them. The problem is time. A book isn't something, obviously, you just say, right, I'm going to walk off next weekend and write a book, or even next week.
yeah,
And I tend not to write quickly. Some people can churn it out. I tend not to be able to do that. So it takes time. So you've then got to think, uh, what can I possibly do? I would like to do all of them again because I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed Cat Charlie. I enjoyed writing The Glass Family. I think my favorite book was a one-off book, the very first book I wrote. I got into writing to see if I could do it. I didn't know. I woke up one day and said to Christine, I think I'll write a book. And she said, well, are you sure about that? And I had no idea what it was involved. I had no idea about what market I should be in. And I wrote a book set in Pakistan called Out of the Silence. And that's still, I think, still my favorite book, because it was a great voyage of discovery there. Can I do it? And it turned out that I could do it.
yeah.
I'm actually, it's sitting over on the shelf here. I must get back to reading it sometime.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you as well, but did you have a kind of favourite series of your own books, or is that something like kind of trying to kind of pick who your favourite child is and that kind of thing? Is it too
Well,
hard to
and
choose?
all my babies are beautiful, of course. And there are parts of different books I really like. There'll be there's a scene in one of the third Charlie Cameron books where Charlie's looking down Buchanan Street and the snow's falling. It's New Year's Eve and the shops are closing, and he waxes lyrical about Glasgow and Scotland and New Year and Rabbie Burns, and I really just like that little bit. Or there'll be a piece in the Glass family, because I stayed in London for years, different
Yeah,
pieces in the Glass family with different locations that really appeal to me, and I like those bits particularly. Overall, I'm trying to do a very simple thing. I'm trying to write a book that I would want to read.
yeah,
And I'm not a deep person at all. I'm not an intellectual type at all. I'm pretty deep down shallow, if you know what I mean, Chris. And so I'm just really trying to write something to entertain. To entertain is the first and the last answer. That's the whole of it.
yeah. And probably I think it's probably the best way to do it, because if it's something that you're going to enjoy, then you're probably going to find it a bit more easier to kind of put together. I think as well, it must kind of help from that side of things if it's something that you find
It does.
interesting yourself.
It
Um,
does.
and some of your books have had quite a bit of critical acclaim to this point, with the likes of games people play being longlisted for the McIlvanney Book Prize and things like that. That must be quite kind of satisfying to kind of get that sort of recognition and sort of almost like kind of approval that you're doing the right thing whenever you're kind of writing.
Well, I absolutely. Games People Play was my first published book, and the publisher had submitted it to Bloody Scotland, and we were out one afternoon, and we come back home, uh, and there was a message for me to contact someone, and I jokingly said, "That'll be Bloody Scotland. Tell me Games People Play has been longlisted," and it was. Um, so on the day we flew back to Scotland, and in actual fact, it was a very busy week. I did TV on BBC on the Wednesday. I did Waterstones and Sauchiehall Street on the Thursday, Body Scotland on the Friday, Coatbridge Library on the Monday. So it was a really good period. That I really did enjoy it. And of course, when you're at Body Scotland, you're with all these very, very well-known people like Val
Yeah,
McDermott and Ian Rankin, and you're in this kind of company with your first published book. It's really, it was a thrill, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it must have been quite a good experience. And like I say, I mean, Bloody Scotland is such a massive crime festival these days. So to be kind of part of that, especially for your kind of first published book, must have been quite a very kind of special thing to be involved in.
It was great fun, great fun.
Yeah, that's great. Now let's go on to your new book a little bit. It is a standalone, is that right? It's not part of it.
It is a standalone.
And it's coming out at the end of this month. It's called Three Sisters, like you mentioned earlier on. The first thing I noticed with it when you sent me a copy of it is you've got a slight bit of a name change on it, because all your other books are under it as Owen Mullen, but this one is O.J. Mullen that's on the cover. Is there any particular reason for that slight little change?
That's just the publisher trying to make me look a bit more mysterious. And also, it's a kind of a new genre, so they thought they would change the name a little bit as well. This is a psychological standalone thriller, and well, you've read it, so you know that. So that's why that is.
Yeah, that's I always kind of like to kind of find out why there's these little things happen, because as a kind of a reader, it's always interesting to kind of see where the kind of changes happen and why. But that's definitely, I caught that straight away, that there was that little change to your name on there. Yeah. And like some of your other books, it is set in Glasgow, which I'm sure is definitely going to appeal to some of our listeners, with us being kind of slap bang in the middle of Glasgow and Edinburgh. Do you want to give us a wee bit of an overview of what the book's about for us?
Okay, Chris. Well, the book's called Three Sisters, and it wouldn't be given too much away to tell you that it's about these three sisters. And it's set in Glasgow. It's about an incident that happens 6 days before Christmas in Byres Road in the west end of the city. And what happens there affects all the characters. Now, these characters, the three sisters and the other guys in the plot, they're all on the journey that everyone is on through life, and they have the reactions and their baggage of the things that have happened to them in the past and the things that happened. They're all affected by this one incident in different ways. And one of the characters in particular is still suffering from an overhang of not having accepted something fully that's happened in her past. So she sees this incident and seizes on it to vent. There's a unrelenting psychological unraveling there for Alex, who's also the narrator of the book. So we follow the progress of all the protagonists. The other guy, the guy in it, Lewis, he's got his own thing going on. He's a CEO of a big company that's undergoing change. They've got a big offer coming in from an American company. And this thing, he's part of what happens. I'm not saying what happens, because if you want to know what happens, you have to read the book, really. But it all stems from this one incident. Who they were before it happened and who they are afterwards are two different things, and that's really what the story's about. Yeah.
I'm not sure if enjoy is really the correct word, but I really like to see how what happens really kind of affects the certain major characters, in particular, like you say, Alex and Lewis. Did you find that a challenge to kind of get that right, do you think, to kind of sort of...
Well, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And it's always a challenge, because you're not just writing one character or one series of events. You're interacting, everybody, they all have, you have something happening and almost like in another part of the forest, this is happening. What these things are related, or they're soon to be related, how they interact, how the sisters all react to each other. They're three very different people. They all react differently to this event. The guy, Lewis, he's got his own thing. So there is a balance to be found. Character development is one of the things that I often get praised for. The characters are pretty fully written, so they're kind of real people. So we've got to get the reactions of what different real people would be to what happens to them.
Yeah, I think that character development is very important, because it makes the kind of characters more real and kind of more vivid in your mind as you're reading the book, and you can kind of really kind of relate to them and get to know them really well, which I think is really important as well.
You've got to care about them, of course.
Yeah, of course, that's a major thing, and I think that kind of helps with that, like having them kind of so well developed. Where did the inspiration for having this kind of close sister relationship at the start, as the start point for the book, with the three sisters come from?
The idea for Three Sisters came from the usual process, which is 2 cups of coffee, sit on the couch, let's have a chat. And then the original idea, it was 2 sisters, and they were being watched by a guy across from a cabin on the other side of the wall. And there was a big twist in that, and we knocked that idea about for a while till we decided, no, forget about all that. It's 3 sisters, and it's happening in Glasgow. And from there, how it works from us is kind of organic, and maybe it's the same for everyone. You get one idea, maybe the central idea, then you do something with it, and that inspires something else or offshoots of that. The story goes off. It doesn't go off by itself. I hear writers say, "Oh, the story had a life of its own." No. In my work, I am God, and I keep a tight hold because I've got to believe it. I can't, if it's too fantastical, if I'm not invested in it in terms of its credibility, I can't write it. So I've got to keep within bounds of reality. At the same time, you've got to have pace, you've got to have action, you've got to have a whole lot of things. The dialogue's got to be crisp, and all these things have got to be there. And those things don't just appear; they tend to be worked on. And quite a lot of stuff doesn't appear in the book. One book we wrote, we threw away the first 30,000 words. That's a third of a book.
Wow.
We just read it and said, no, that's going in the wrong direction. Going. You've got to have that kind of critical self-critic thing, or it wouldn't work for me anyway. So it all comes from the same process: 2 cups of coffee, 2 people, a conversation, write some notes and see where it goes. Once you get there, have we managed to do something with that? If we have, now where does it go? The idea is, you sometimes read a book and think, how in goodness did someone think this all up? And I think the answer, certainly for me, certainly for us, is, well, we didn't think it all up. We thought it up in stages, and then normally there'll be a beginning, and you know where you want to go at the end. Now, what you have to do is cover that pesky distance in between and make it exciting, believable, and a good read. That's how it works.
Yeah, and that I think is probably a big challenge, which you do manage to do very well with this book as well.
Thanks very much.
One of the things the things that I was a little bit surprised about with it was, without trying to give too much away about what happens, but Lewis really kind of turns on quite a lot of his close friends at once, and I guess, and I was a little surprised how soured his relationship with them got so quickly as well. But I guess that's something that you probably wouldn't know how you dealt with until you were kind of in the situation that Lewis ends up in, I guess.
Well, without giving anything away, really, what happens traumatizes that guy.
Yeah,
and he's already in. His life is already in a state of flux. His business has got a big offer from an American company. He has a partner. They're not on the same page about what should happen to the company, although they previously had been. He's haunted with what happens in Byers Road, and all his reactions are affected by that. It's kind of off the rails for quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
And when he returns to his roots, it's kind of gets back to who he is. He gets some, although by that time some things have been lost, some relationships have been fractured and things like that. They're not redeemable, which is all part of the drama of the story. And of course, that's what happens in real life. When we're under pressure, we react differently to when we're having a great day. So and in the end, we worked hard on Lewis. In the end, I was quite pleased with what happened, how he turned out.
Yeah. It's another absolutely cracking thriller, like I say, and anyone who is listening to it definitely should pick it up when they get a chance to read it. But I did want to find out a little bit about what you have been reading recently, and what any recommendations that you might have for some of the listeners as well, outside of your own books. So what kind of books that you have been kind of reading recently and would really kind of recommend to anyone that might be listening?
Well, I sometimes find myself reading lots of different things. Sometimes I read biographies, sometimes I read histories, and then I need a break from them. At the moment, in terms of fiction, I'm reading a book by, and I have a note of it here, a book by a woman called Anita Waller. and her book is called The Couple Across the Street, and that's a good psychological thriller. Also, just a few weeks ago, I read Death on Cromer Beach by Ross Greenwood, and I enjoyed that too. I tend to, as I said at the start, I wasn't joking. I'm not complex. I just like a good read, you know, and these two were certainly very, very good reads.
Yeah, well, that's good. And if you want to check them out, have a look to see if I'm not sure if we have them in our library catalogue, but we could check that out later on and see if we could get them and see if we can get them in if we don't have them already. Obviously, finally, you've got Three Sisters just coming out, but I wanted to also kind of find out what's the next big thing that's really going to happen with you. Have you got the next kind of book kind of germinating away on the plan already, or anything like that? Have you got any exclusives for the podcast?
I'm always germinating away, but I think you can get cream for that. Several ideas at the moment, because Three Sisters is a bit of a departure for us, OJ and all that. I'm kind of taking a step back for a little while to see how it goes, how it's received. I do have another idea in the same kind of vein. Still have ideas for the Glass family. I've already written about 10,000 words on the next Charlie Cameron book. So it's kind of wait and see at the moment. Yeah. Again, as I said earlier, it's a big commitment to write a book. When I start on a book, I want to be sure that this is the book I'm going to stick with for the next 4 or 5 months. You know, so at the moment I'm kind of holding fire, but there are plenty of ideas there. No problem with that.
And do you have much in way of promotional events, anything like that happening to support the launch of the Three Sisters? Happening, anything like that?
I don't at the moment. I don't think I have at the moment, but the publisher's got lots of things lined up for me, I believe. You know, in fact, I'm meeting the CEO on Wednesday in Glasgow, so she'll be no doubt talking about that. You know.
Well, I hope the launch goes really well, Owen, and it's been fantastic talking to you. And no doubt we'll probably see you in maybe one of our libraries again in the not too distant future, I'm sure. And any of our listeners should check out the Three Sisters once it's released at the end of this month as well. It's definitely worth reading.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. Good to speak to you, and thanks for all the help you've been to me over time as well. Appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome.
Bye-bye.
So thank you very much, Owen, for coming and joining us on the podcast. It was great to catch up with you, and it was great to kind of discover a little bit more about how you go about your writing and things like that as well. I can say anyone who has enjoyed Owen's books in the past, or even if you haven't, do go and check out Three Sisters when it comes out at the end of this month. It is definitely worth a read for sure, and it's a captivating story, and you'll be drawn in super quick, and you'll love every single page you get a chance to read of it. For a little bit of sort of updates from the library service, I think we mentioned the last time in the podcast, but the three kind of main things that we've got going on at the moment is Let's Go Summer 2023 and the Summer Reading Challenge, and also Capture North Lanarkshire. So what are those things? Let's Go Summer is our summer activities programme, and there's lots of great events going on, and amongst that, the digital team have got some great events happening with in partnership with Make It Happen to bring some coding events into the libraries throughout summer, and you can check out the listings on the culturenail.co.uk website to see exactly where you might be able to catch one of those. And there's also lots of great craft events and story times and Lego challenges and things like that sort of stuff going on as part of Let's Go Summer. It's a great plan. It's a great set of events, and all the library events involved in it are free to take part in. So it's great to get kids involved in during summer holidays. Also, another great kids activity to do throughout summer is Summer Reading Challenge. And if you don't know what the Summer Reading Challenge is, then it is simply a chance to encourage reading throughout summer for your children, and the kids get encouraged to read 6 books throughout summer. And every 2 books, you get a little prize, you get some stickers, And if you manage to read all 6 books, at the end of it, you manage to get a medal and a certificate as well. So what's not to love about that? And you can sign up for that in your local library. You simply go to the desk, ask to sign up to the Summer Reading Challenge, and they'll give you the little kit that you need to get started, and you can record what books you've read, what you thought of them, that kind of stuff in that, and also collect your stickers in that as well. So it's a great little scheme to get involved in, and it encourages reading for pleasure throughout the summer months, which is a fantastic thing for the kids to get involved in too. But that's not all we've got, because we do have something for the adults to get involved in, and the kids if they want as well, if they happen to be into this too. We are doing a photography competition at the moment, and we are going to collate the best photos from that into an ebook and launch that on BorrowBox, our eLibrary app, on World Photography Day later in August. So you've still got time to get involved in that, and hopefully the weather will pick up a little bit, because it has been a little bit wet, which doesn't necessarily make for the best photos. But you never know, you could get some kind of nice sort of wet photo out there somewhere and get that sent into us. But as we have had some fantastic entries to that already, and I think it's going to really showcase some of the really interesting and beautiful spots all around North Lanarkshire, of which there are many, and there is going to be a really nice little ebook at the end of that as well, and everyone will be able to download that on BorrowBox to see it whenever it's released on World Photography Day later in the year. Now, as I said, this is the last episode of our current run of the main podcast, but we will be back very soon. We're taking a short break from that, and we'll be back with Season 8. I can't believe we've already reached Season 8. Bees books will continue throughout that as well, though, and so there will be another episode from that next week, and also during the time that we're away as well. So do watch out for those and catch Jenny and Parry and their book recommendations, and see what genres and what themes Bees suggest to them to take part in, and see if they can match the challenge that Bee sets them. If you don't know who Bee is, go and check out one of the Bees Books Edition episodes to find out more about that. That's all for us just now, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. And if you have done so, then you can leave us some feedback on Twitter using hashtag FLB podcast, or you can drop us a little email to librarypodcast@northland.gov.uk. And I will see you again soon with more episodes in Season 8. Bye for now, guys.